What's going on, Axie fam? Elijah here, back with another video. And today I have one that I am very excited about. Joining me is fellow MT8 Pro 1437, or Theban. He is an ex-Dota professional. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you, Elijah, for having me. I'm very excited to be a part of one of your videos. You know, when I first started playing this game, I watched all your videos. I watched your videos multiple times, actually. So it was very helpful for me.
Damn, that means a lot. I appreciate you saying that. I'm glad they could be useful. Now look at you. You're a top 100 player. You're balling. You got Axies. You're breeding. I'm excited to chat a bit about your Axie story and also cover the marketplace, which is what the focus of this video is going to be on today, is where Axies are at, where they were recently as far as pricing, and where we think they might go. Let's start off real quick with your backstory. Like, you Dota Pro 10 years, top coach, like you were out there doing it, right? What brought you to Axie?
I mean, I just want to try my hand at a different game. In the past, I did play some games like auto chess battler games, but there was Yori who moved on to Axie, and then I had my in-laws who are also Filipinos who are starting to get into Axie as well. So they're like, hey, maybe you want to check this game out, you know, a game where you can play to earn. So it kind of piqued my interest. So I just tried my hand at it, but I stuck around because of the game itself. I felt like it's very fun. You know, I love card games. I love strategy games. That's kind of my thing. So that's kind of how I got into it.
That's amazing. So what excites you the most about Axie right now? Are you a breeder? Is it mostly playing? By the way, for anyone who doesn't know, 1437 has an amazing YouTube channel. He covers Axie content. I'll leave the link in the description below. Make sure you go subscribe to him. But why don't you tell us, what is it that you're most passionate about in this environment and ecosystem?
Everything, to be honest, from like creating Axie teams. I remember when I first got started, I just had like some very basic pure breed Axies because I felt like that was the one where I can't really go wrong with, and I can always sell it back. So I started with that. Eventually, I knew that I wanted to have as many Axies as I can. I wanted to try different teams. You know, coming from Dota, you have like an entire free hero pool. You can pick between like 100+ heroes, and I can play all of them. And that's kind of like what I wanted to do in Axie as well. And I knew for me to do that, I needed to breed. So I also went into breeding at the same time. When I started playing, I already had like an idea of how I was going to expand from being just having like 3 Axies and 2 eggs into someone who has like 100 Axies now.
Let's talk real briefly about that. So you've already kind of blown up your economy in just a few months. Like, what do you advice do you have for someone who's looking to turn this into like a full-time income and to just, or a supplemental income? Because like you said, you went from 3 Axies to over 100. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is not financial advice or anything. I would say like the number one thing is I did a lot of research. I figured out what was the most optimal way for me to get like a zero breed Axie. I think in the marketplace, a lot of people nowadays, they tend to like sell zero breeds because they have like smaller percentage in terms of their purity, but it's not always accurate according to like the Axie Freak, what the real purity of an Axie is. Because there are some cards in the game that are so good that, you know, will bring down the purity of the Axie, but it's so valuable in PvP and people are willing to pay a premium on that. So I did a lot of research in terms of finding what those good cards are with experience playing the game. I learned that too. I remember when I first started, having a zero breed was impossible to have unless you were paying like $800, $700.
That was when the market was booming. Like plant virgins were like half an ETH or something crazy. That's going to lead us into the next like larger portion of the video. And by the way, I think you're going to need to owe these people a breeding video after that, because you gave away like a little bit of info. I think I got it though. You're like, leaf bug's a great example. It's a phenomenal card on a plant, drops the purity, but it's going to sell for a premium. So Theban, breeding video at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you a tidbit right now. Speaking of that time back then, the trick that I did in that moment was I found Axies that were bred 3 times because, you know, using a lot of SLP and AXS, not everybody has the resources. So I set the breeding counter to 3. I found the highest purity I can find there for the cheapest price because the difference between a 3 breed and like a 4 breed wasn't very high. So I would try to breed those 2 Axies one time so that I could create myself a zero breed Axie with a very high purity. And then I can either sell that back to the marketplace or use that with another partner and start my own farm. That was like my trick I used at that time.
So that was like a way to do it without having to put up like tons of money up front, right?
Exactly.
It's a bit of a gamble, but if it doesn't work, you can sell back the Axie, kind of break even. If it works, you could be onto something great. So great information there. Appreciate you sharing that. Let's talk about where we're at right now in the current state of things. So we had Katana just came out, big deal. We can now lock up our AXS and SLP in liquidity pools. We can earn Ronin, which is going to be the token that kind of fuels the whole ecosystem in the DEX. And now prices of Axies are starting to go back up. So what do you make of all of this? Because recently, like right before this, I was seeing builds going for dirt cheap. And I'm talking about like hair biffinators. I'm talking about peace treaty, the hair balloon birds that were once very rare. We're going really, really cheap. I'm going to pull that up while you give me your initial thoughts.
Yeah. So what happened with Katana being released is everybody who was holding their SLP started staking it or liquidity pooling. So then the other one was you're able to sell your SLP for Ethereum. So many scholars especially sold their SLP, got a Ethereum, and then went out into a shop and bought everything. So that kind of just lifted the floor up very quickly. The previous weeks, like that money wasn't really there because you would have had to like send your SLP to somewhere else to exchange it and bring it back, and you're paying some kind of gas or some kind of fees wherever you're trying to exchange, and people weren't really looking to do that. And on top of that, when Katana came out, SLP skyrocketed from like 7 cents or 6.5 cents all the way to 13 cents at its peak. And
so people have more money to spend.
Yeah, they had more money to spend, and they also started realizing, oh, maybe some managers are like, oh, we should get more scholars now because it's like 13 cents. Maybe it'll stay here, and then more Axie starts selling.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense when you break it down that way. So this is the bird I was talking about. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This was up to like 0.1 Ethereum a few days ago, which is crazy. Like if you guys were paying attention and searching for this, that would have been a steal. They're back up to 0.2. One of the rarer builds, very popular in the meta. So what do you make of this? Like, are we going to see these premium builds continue to go up? What are your thoughts? I think you're more of a market maker or market whiz than I am. I'd like to hear what you think.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on when the next SLP payout is, and we'll see some more spikes in there in terms of Axies being bought out. But this Axie itself, it's called the Elijah/Index bird. Every time people click on it, that's what they see as it being titled. Yeah, it was at 0.1 because a lot of people weren't really looking at buying Axies because the new season is about to come out, and you don't want to get caught with the bag, of an Axie that is going to get nerfed. So that's why it was being slept on. But the floor on these were much quicker to go up because there aren't so much supply, but there are a lot of people breeding this. So whenever you want to buy an Axie that's a little bit rare, it's worth it to check if the person who's selling it are breeding more of it, because that means on the next set, when they come out like in 5 days, it's going to have another timing where the price of those birds will go down. But if you try to buy it midweek, when they've already been bred and sold, then it's going to be a little bit more pricier.
That makes a lot of sense. All right. So even though prices are going up and you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I need to snag these Axies before they're too expensive, you might not want to rush into that, because what have we all been waiting for? The season 19 patch. It's taking forever, but it's still something to be cautious of, because as Steven said, you don't want to go out and buy a super expensive grass snake poison team or cute bunny team that has a high chance of being nerfed to a degree. Not saying they won't be playable, but usually it's good to like wait and see what happens with the nerfs and how it affects the market, so you don't end up spending more than you need to. That being said, what are your thoughts there in terms of like purchasing now? What would you stay away from? What would you consider like hunting for? And I'm going to go ahead and ask you to share your screen. Maybe you can browse the market a little and like throw some ideas out there.
Right. So I did make a video recently on cards that I think should be kind of balance changed before season 19. I didn't talk about cards that should be buffed or anything, but more about what are so OP in the leaderboards. There are a lot of cards that I feel like are really strong, but they go kind of under the radar. Most of them come from like some beast cards, like, Risky Beast, Dual Blade Pocky. Like these are always going to be very solid. And they go under like the similar horn type cards. Then you got like Hair, which I think is a great card. So then we go down here to the bug cards. You got Sando that has insane stats. It does a lot of damage. And especially if next patch, we see some of these big cards getting nerfed, we might even see buffs to like Beast or Bugs that aren't really played that much now. And then you can see a lot more value from these things as well. So normally,
are you saying these cards you're just a fan of them? You think they have longevity? I mean, I don't see these getting nerfed. They're not really used that much. I just want to clear up for the audience. What are your takeaways from like these high damage horn and bug cards?
So these cards, I feel like they're not going to be balance changed, and they're gonna be used regardless. So at this point in the marketplace, if those prices are like really good, then they're going to be more valuable later.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
I would also add that in general, whenever you're expecting balance changes, like you don't want to aim for buying Axies that are S tier right before balance changes. You want to aim to buy Axies that are in the A tier. So I'm sure a lot of you do your research, you know what teams are good. So you can always try to aim for that because it's going to be much safer for you.
What are some of the cards that you are concerned about or like would not be like eager to go and purchase for the off season right now?
So 3 cards I'm like fairly sure about is going to be Cute Bunny, Grass Snake, and Double Talk. These guys are absolute terrorizers in matchmaking, and they have extremely anti-fun mechanics. So I feel like these 3 are going to probably be like something that I would just completely stay away from.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we can kind of all agree with that, or sort of like hoping for it because of how powerful they are, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's wrap up with some choices that you would be interested in specifically. Like what are some class choices or even some particular Axies that you might want to pick up going into season 19? What are your thoughts on the meta, in other words?
Yeah, so in terms of meta Axies, like one thing I immediately looked at after season 18, I noticed that there aren't actually a lot of bugs in the marketplace. And I feel like they're very underrated. Coming from like a developer point of view, you always want to give a little love to those things. So bugs, I feel right now are extremely underrated. This is a very classic bug here with Snail Shell Fish Snack. It's got the discard bug too. Lots of disables. They're relatively cheap, and you can see not a lot of them in the marketplace. And for me at least, it was a good bet. Another one is the discard bug, like you play with Parapiro with the Sandal, which I think
damage.
Exactly, with the damage. I think that's also another one that's really good. In general,
pricey.
Yeah, they're pretty pricey. I think they were going for 0.1 before the.
But you can switch that out for like a Buzz wouldn't be the worst choice. I think also you could try for Scarab and see if that's out there. If it's a little cheaper, if it's not that much more expensive, then just do the Sandal, right? Because it's going to be more damage than the Buzz, and the attack down isn't nearly as good. So right now, I know you're using them quite a bit in a few different teams. Why are you so interested in playing them right now?
I always felt like, especially coming from the Dota background, like I don't want to play something that is overly broken. I always want to prepare for the next patch. So I'm thinking like just making my bets. Okay, this might become better because I already think it's like on the border of becoming something S tier. So I'm just practicing it. And if I already get the hang of it now, then maybe for next season, I'm already going to be at the top right away.
So I'm going to wrap up with saying that my take on things is I definitely think we see probably less Cute Bunny next season. In my opinion, that's going to open things back up for tanks such as this, big damage tanks, which are really awesome. You kind of have a hard time with them now because you're going to often miss twice against all the Cute Bunny that's out there. But if we see a little bit less of that next season, then this can definitely be more viable and very strong. So Theban's been breeding these. I think he's right on the money with this in terms of collecting a few and stocking up for both himself, myself, our team, and potentially even for some sales in the future. So in wrapping up, do they go out on a shopping spree now, Theban? What are your final thoughts around the market? If it's a good time to buy, or if we think we might see a correction and prices pull back?
Well, if you're a very alert player and you're constantly checking out the marketplace, like me personally, I wouldn't buy any Axies at the moment. I would try to wait for the patch, see what happens. And then in the first hours, I would try to buy something that I'm speculating is going to be really good after the change. And that could give you a flipping opportunity as well, because you'll be the first one there. And secondly, I would also say or recommend to people, don't chase the meta. the meta Axies, especially on the first weeks, are going to be going for like 0.3 ETH or something ridiculous. And, by the end of the season, they might not even be the best teams.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've seen that happen with Shrimpinator. We've seen it happen where like meta Axies pop off and they stay around forever, like with Poison and Cute Bunny or Buntena. But in some cases it fades. So you have to remember, like, the next season is probably going to be another month and a half, like the last one was. You have time to let that develop. If something's obvious, you're like, oh, that looks amazing. That's a great buff. Boom, go sweep it. Otherwise, it's a good time to be patient. On that note, I think we're going to wrap this video up. Theban is, like I said, a good friend, a dear friend, MT8 Pro, and helping me grow this amazing community that we have over at Meditate, which we're going to be looking to expand even further in the next few weeks, months, and years. So we're looking to make something really great. Thanks for joining me on the show. It's been a pleasure getting to know you and building together. So
say thank you, Professor Pogi.
Thank you, Professor Pokey.
Thank you.
Yeah, guys, go subscribe to Theban. Follow me on Twitter. Follow Theban on Twitter. Links to those are going to be in the description as well. And we will catch you in the next one. Peace.